Why did Egyptian pharaohs marry their own sisters? Was it power, religion, or something far more mysterious? And how did this royal custom lead to deadly genetic curses that haunted their bloodline? Let's uncover the hidden truth behind Egypt's royal marriages, a practice that shaped history but came with a price too great to ignore. Researchers and scholars have always been interested in ancient Egypt because of its long past, huge tombs, and strong pharaohs. But one of the most interesting and controversial things about Egyptian royalty is that pharaohs often married their siblings. This was not just an everyday habit, but a deeply rooted practice affected by faith, politics, and the desire for power. Pharaohs were not just masters, they were considered heavenly beings, the earthly agents of the gods. They thought that marrying their sisters would keep their family pure and sacred, which would make them even more magical. But this practice wasn't just about religion, it had major political effects as well. By keeping marriages within the ruling family, the pharaohs guaranteed that power stayed concentrated within their line, stopping rival families from claiming the throne. But was this behavior simply driven by religious beliefs? Or were there greater reasons behind it? We will talk about the different parts of this practice in this movie, including its religious meaning, political benefits, genetic effects, and ultimate decline. This was not just a simple habit. It was a vital part of Egyptian history that continues to interest and puzzle researchers today. The concept of divine kingship. To understand why Egyptian pharaohs married their sisters, we must first study the idea of divine rule. Unlike ordinary kings, pharaohs were not just considered political leaders. They were considered gods on earth. The Egyptians thought their ruler was the live embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed god of royalty, and the son of Ra, the sun god. This divine status gave the king total power over his people and the land of Egypt. Maintaining this divine lineage was important. Egyptians thought that if the ruling genes stayed pure, the pharaoh's divine power would stay intact. This is why sister marriages were seen as necessary. They guaranteed that the royal family's sacred blood was not weakened by commoners or strangers. A king married a non-royal woman, which could damage his claim to divinity in the eyes of the people. This idea was deeply based in Egyptian folklore. According to mythology, the gods Osiris and Isis were both brothers and husband and wife. Their son, Horus, was the true king of Egypt, and every pharaoh was considered his earthly representation. By copying the gods, the Egyptian kings strengthened their own spiritual authority. Thus, the practice of brother marriage was more than just a tradition. It was a way for pharaohs to show their divine power and keep their rule over Egypt. However, while this practice helped protect their power, it also had long-term effects. Political and power stability. While the idea of divine rule played a major role in sister marriages among Egyptian pharaohs, there was also a strong political purpose behind it. In ancient Egypt, power and security were everything. The royal family could not afford to let their rule be threatened by rival groups or noble families. By marrying within their own family, pharaohs guaranteed that the throne stayed in their dynasty's hands. If a king married a noble woman from outside the royal lines, her family could gain power and possibly question the ruling family's authority. To avoid this, the royal family kept power concentrated within their own bloodline. The most important queen, often called the Great Royal Wife, was usually the pharaoh's sister or half-sister. This guaranteed that the heir to the throne came from a completely royal family, without any influence from powerful foreign families. Another important factor was co-rulership. In many cases, a pharaoh's wife, who was also his sister, was not just a partner but a co-ruler. This helped strengthen their dynasty, as seen in the case of Queen Hatshepsut, who originally ruled alongside her husband and half-brother, Thutmose II, before becoming one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs herself. This method also helped avoid civil wars over succession. Since only children from the royal family were considered rightful rulers, conflicts over the throne were reduced. However, while this system offered safety for Egyptian masters, it also had unexpected consequences, particularly in terms of health and genetics, which we will explore in the next section. Mythological justification, religious and legendary basis. One of the best reasons for sister marriage among Egyptian pharaohs came from their religious views and folklore. According to ancient Egyptian legend, the gods themselves practiced brother marriage, setting a heavenly pattern for human masters to follow. The most well-known tale that impacted this practice was the story of Osiris and Isis. Osiris, one of the most important gods in Egyptian legend, was married to his sister, Isis. Together they ruled over the world and were called the perfect god pair. When Osiris was killed by his jealous brother Seth, Isis used her magic to bring him back to life long enough to conceive their son, Horus, who later avenged his father and took his proper place as king. Since Egyptian pharaohs were considered the live embodiment of Horus and the straight children of the gods, they thought they had to follow the holy example of Osiris and Isis. By marrying their sisters, they were not only keeping the royal family pure, but also copying the gods, strengthening their holy position as masters of Egypt. Throughout history, many pharaohs used this mythic rationale to continue the practice. Thutmose II married his sister Hatshepsut, and later Ptolemy II married his sister Arsinoe II, following the same holy custom. The Ptolemaic kingdom, which ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great, continued this practice, strongly stressing its link to Egyptian religious views. This mythological basis gave a strong religious and cultural reason for brother marriages, making them not just okay, but necessary in the eyes of the people. Pharaohs used these heavenly stories to strengthen their rule and ensure that their power stayed accepted. Inbreeding and genetic consequences, bloodline mixing, and physical effects. One of the biggest effects of repeated marriages within the same royal lines was the rise of major genetic diseases among Egyptian pharaohs. When close cousins marry for multiple generations, the chances of dangerous DNA changes increase, leading to various physical and health problems. A famous example of the results of inbreeding is Pharaoh Tutankhamun, King Tut. A DNA study of his mummy indicated that he suffered from multiple genetic illnesses, including a clubfoot, cleft palate, and bone diseases. He also had a weak immune system, which made him more sensitive to diseases. Many scholars think that these health problems were a direct result of generations of sister marriages within his royal family. A recent DNA study on old Egyptian mummies has proven that many pharaohs suffered similar health problems. Studies indicate that several kings had spinal deformities, chemical problems, and other genetic conditions that made them physically weak. For example, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun's father, was often portrayed with a strangely enlarged head and wide hips, which might have been due to a genetic illness. These genetic flaws did affect individual kings and had long-term effects for the Egyptian government. Many children born from such unions had serious health problems and died young, leading to succession crises and uncertainty in royal families. In some cases, this damaged the Egyptian state, making it more open to foreign attacks and internal conflicts. Despite these risks, the practice of royal inbreeding continued for ages due to religious and political reasons. However, as foreign masters took control of Egypt, this practice finally decreased, marking a major change in the royal marriage customs. Exceptions and decline of the practice. While sister marriage was a popular tradition among Egyptian pharaohs, not every king followed this practice. Some pharaohs chose to marry outside their close family, either for political ties or personal reasons. In certain cases, marriages with noble families or even foreign women helped improve political links with nearby countries. In the later era of ancient Egypt, especially during the rule of the last pharaohs, there were growing exceptions to this custom. Some of the later kings, especially in the New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BCE, married non-royal women or daughters of high-ranking officials. This was done either to win respect from strong families or due to the falling number of eligible royal brothers. A big turning point came during the Hellenistic period, after Alexander the Great defeated Egypt in 332 BCE. His general Ptolemy founded the Ptolemaic dynasty, which controlled Egypt for nearly 300 years. While the Ptolemies originally accepted Egyptian practices, including brother marriage, they also brought Greek habits. Over time, Greek and Roman forces began to weaken these ancient practices. By the time Rome took control of Egypt in 30 BCE, sister marriage among the ruling elite had largely fallen. Roman masters brought their law and cultural standards, which discouraged close relative weddings. Additionally, Egypt was no longer ruled by local pharaohs, but by Roman rulers and kings, who did not continue the practice of brother marriage. Thus, over centuries, the practice of royal inbreeding gradually faded due to political changes, foreign impact, and the understanding of its bad effects. While it stayed a part of Egyptian history, the fall of this practice marked a major change in the country's royal norms and government. The tradition of Egyptian pharaohs marrying their sisters was a complex mix of religion, politics, and divine belief. It was not merely a personal choice, but a strategic decision aimed at preserving royal power and maintaining the divine bloodline. By following the example of their gods, such as Osiris and Isis, pharaohs justified sibling marriages as a sacred duty that reinforced their legitimacy as rulers. However, despite its religious and political benefits, this practice eventually led to serious consequences. Generations of inbreeding resulted in genetic disorders, weakening some rulers and making them vulnerable to health issues. In addition, succession crises caused by unhealthy or childless rulers created political instability, which sometimes weakened Egypt as a powerful empire. Over time, as foreign influences like the Hellenistic and Roman cultures spread into Egypt, the practice began to decline. By the end of the Ptolemaic period, sibling marriage among rulers became rare, marking a shift in Egyptian royal traditions. Even today, this aspect of Egyptian history remains a subject of research and analysis. Historians and scientists continue to study the biological, cultural, and political impact of royal inbreeding, providing deeper insights into one of history's most fascinating civilizations.